Start recording. Go. Welcome to a special Thursday edition of Hoopsville. We're in Holland, Michigan at Hope College. Pat Coleman, Dave McHugh, as we get this show underway. First time that Hoopsville has been to the women's championship weekend. And of course, we have to thank the men's championship tournament for helping us do this, because obviously things are still delayed. We're talking 4 teams left here in Holland, Salem next week, 8. So we still got 16 teams alive on the men's side. But let's go to the women. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about them here tonight. And Pat, 4 very dynamic teams making very different runs to get here. We still have an undefeated team, which used to be a rarity. It seems to be more common these days. DePaul trying to win a title, still undefeated. Of course, Amherst, been here often, just one title. Williams on the other side would love to get a NESCAC battle here. And of course, you have Whitewater doing what the men did last year, hoping to win a national title. 3 purple teams, something about purple.
I'll be wearing the purple on Friday too, just for the record. And first of all, let me welcome you to the Division III Women's Basketball Final Four and to DeVos Fieldhouse here at Hope. I know you can't see too much of what's behind us, but this is a fantastic building, a palace for Division III basketball, really.
Oh, absolutely. Beautiful location. Of course, we'll see it a lot better for the games tomorrow and so on and so forth. But you got to love that Hope has really put their foot forward with this. They've done this now, I believe, the 4th time
in the last
6 years. Exactly. It's too bad their women's team, like Illinois Wesleyan, still was unable to get here for a title game. But they still host terrifically. We're still just in our first day here and enjoying it already. You've been here, for this. What's the thing that people should take away if they're watching these games on Friday?
I think one of the things to remember is that, in a lot of cases, it's not like the men's Final Four in a sense that this is still played on an on-campus arena. It's one of the finest on-campus arenas in Division III basketball, don't get me wrong. But, you don't have some of the logistical challenges or the long shooting backgrounds that we often talk about in Salem. That's not what happens here. There's stands behind each basket. The shooting backgrounds and the backdrops are nice. If you've watched a Hope game online, and there have been rare opportunities, so Calvin men's game on satellite over the last couple of years. It's not going to be that kind of atmosphere since when Hope was not in this last year, the fan turnout was pretty low, relatively low. It's just not going to be that kind of atmosphere. So keep that in mind. It'll be a nice neutral atmosphere. It'll probably be maybe a little antiseptic in a sense, kind of dry. It depends very much on whose fans come out. And for Whitewater, this is a trip around the lake. It's a pretty easy trip for them. For DePaul, it's a very easy trip for them too. So we have an opportunity for a good fan base in each of those semifinals on Friday.
And of course, NESCAC fans would love to see a NESCAC final as the bracket was built this year to try and put together. Of course, Williams, I would say, probably has the toughest challenge. We'll certainly talk more about these in detail, but just in a setup sense, they may have the toughest challenge going up against an unbeaten who has throttled some teams like WashU.
I would think so too. The thing that Williams has going for him, and we'll talk about it extensively when we talk with both Williams and DePaul later in the show. Williams is just a fantastic defensive team. I think we're well known that they blocked 20 shots against Whitman on Saturday in the round of 8. Now, even if Whitman was a little bit tired, that's still a lot of shots. And it's not unusual. Williams blocks 8 shots a game. That's tops in Division III. They're big. They got long arms. They have. When I was listening to I was listening to Danny Rayner describe her teammate Claire Bajer earlier today. First thing I thought of was Hannah Munger, the exact, similar kind of player in terms of length and arms. So it would be interesting to see as the kind of person who alters shots without even having to necessarily block them. It's a, going up against her, that that's going to be a significant thing. But for Williams, this is their first trip here, first trip to the national semifinals in women's basketball at all. Pat Manning has been there for 23 years. Yeah. It's a battle of two veteran coaches. That should be a really interesting game. And then on the other side, Amherst, obviously, we all know all about what GP Cromartie has done over the last 5 years, 6 years there. 125 wins and 5 losses. Those are Larry Karras numbers.
And really, those losses really coming, most of them here at the championship weekend. He's only lost one individual, in game season twice, I think.
Yeah, the loss this season to Williams, and then they lost to King 2 years ago.
Which technically is
and then
now a win,
got asterisked out. So but it's a program that's been here, it's a coach that's been here, and we wrote about it on D3Hoops.com earlier this week. It's a lot of players who were here but didn't play, at least not in that national semifinal game. The championship was still on the line. In that third place game blowout, a lot of those players got some PT. But it'll be interesting to see. Folks like Jasmine Hardy and Savannah Holness, who were here last year but didn't really get into those games, and then freshmen Shannon Pritchard and Haley Zwecker, they're going to get their first appearance at the women's Final Four, and then Whitewater. So Whitewater, won one of the toughest conferences in the land, and then lost to Stevens Point in the conference tournament final. Had to beat Hope to get here. They're obviously a force to be reckoned with. They kept second-ranked Hope from coming back to its home floor. Yeah. So, you can never count out. Frankly, you just can't count out the WIAC champion any sport. And women's basketball is certainly one of those.
Yeah, and again, Whitewater women trying to do what the Whitewater men did last year.
We have a story to that effect on the site
win the national title.
That's right.
Of course, and we all know how well Whitewater football has done over the years. Yeah, just a little bit. So we're here at the DeVos Center, and clearly we won't stay here for the rest of the show. We will go live. We'll go back to our home, as it were, for tonight, which is the Hayworth Inn, just down a few blocks from here on Hope campus. Of course, students leaving for spring break. That's the other key here, so not a lot of students will be on campus. But we're looking forward to this one. Pat, myself, Gordon Mann will join us when we kind of take it all from here. Don't forget, you can interact with us. Make sure you email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville. Of course, that's twitter.com/D3Hoopsville. Or use the hashtag, and it's Hoopsville, or go to facebook.com/Hoopsville. Those are the three main ways. Of course, there is a chat room alongside on possibly some of the places you're watching this show at. Join us there as well. We'll try and answer some of your questions. We certainly are more women's-based tonight, but we'll talk about the 16 teams and 8 games remaining on the men's side as well. You are listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, and we'll be back from Hope College right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Allows you to be able to give yourself to other things, not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And there we go. Now they can hear us. We'll start that over. So Dave McHugh here with Hoopsville. Hope you're enjoying the late start to the show. We apologize. It seems when we go on the road, we must start it late. It's just status operating procedure for us. Of course, we did the earlier segment there, Pat Coleman and myself, from the DeVos Center. And, of course, now joined by Coach Brian Morehouse, whose home is the DeVos Center. And, Coach, thank you for starters for getting us here and helping us with Hoopsville. But second of all, I know you'd rather be playing here, but at the same time, I'm sure you're proud as a organization and as a program for hosting this yet again.
Well, I'm confident we're going to put on a great show for all the nation to see. We always host very well, and I think the teams walk out of here feeling like rock stars, which is what our hope is for every single time we host. We want the student athletes to have a special experience that they never forget.
Of course, hosting for the fourth time in the last 6 years in between Illinois Wesleyan. And, of course, next year goes to Stevens Point for just a year. We can talk about that some other time down the road. But what's this meant for the college? What has this meant for Holland, Michigan, and Western Michigan in general?
I think it's been a great opportunity for just the city of Holland and the College of Hope just to really show off our hosting abilities. I think that we are a tourist town by nature, being on the shores of Lake Michigan. We host, one of the largest Tulip Time. Tulip Time is one of the largest things that goes on around America as far as just parades and things like that. And, we do a very good job with that. The town is used to hosting, and we take great pride in our hospitality, not just as a college but as a community.
Again, fourth out of the last 6 years. Looking down the road, is Hope looking at hopefully doing this again? Is it take a break and see where it goes type mentality?
Those are for people above my pay grade.
Would you like to do it again? Let's just say that.
I think it's always a good thing when you host the Final Four. I would have liked to have played in a few more of them at my own place.
Sure.
Had a couple opportunities and we didn't make it. Fell short by a game, but it's always special to see teams come in here and realize their dreams. Having been to 2 Final Fours myself and as a coach, you know how special it is. And I think I would have wanted to have been hosted by a place like Hope. And I can only say that in the future, if we get that opportunity, I would like to be not the host but hosted.
The players involved, and let's get to that because the elephant in the room, obviously coming up just short against Whitewater in the last games. Those games, of course, at Whitewater. I've got a couple questions along those lines, but quickly from your take, you've had a few days, obviously, to digest, maybe even look at tape if you so chose. What was the difference?
I think the biggest difference was Liz Ellis, got 2 quick fouls in that game, and as a result, our defense, she is our go-go person, and it took a bit of a step back. She certainly earned one of them, and it was just a challenge because she's the human press break and she's our ball pressure kid. So I thought that sort of set us back on our heels. And then of course we dug ourselves a hole, which you go from 18 down to only 2 down with 3 minutes to go. We had our chances, and we would have loved to have 2 or 3 more minutes in that ball game, but it wasn't meant to be. Great game. I thought that the Whitewater kids played outstanding. Played like you're supposed to play at home, honestly. Yeah. And I thought that they played like they had a home court advantage. They defended their home court very well, and they were very, very well coached coming into that game.
Kind of a role reversal. The previous time you guys faced off earlier in the season, you were the ones who got up to the big lead, kind of held them off as they rallied back. So kind of a role reversal. Was it a sense of, hey, they did this to us, we can do it back? Was there a sense of, hey, we haven't been in this position, but this is what we need to do?
There was no doubt. I mean, we kept walking into huddles, and I kept looking around for, fear that it was going to be over out of our players, or, just that sense of dread that you get at halftime or something like that. Our kids never stopped believing. I think the buzzer went off, and they still thought they had 4 or 5 more minutes to go. It's the most resilient group I think I've ever coached, and they were not going to give up the fight until somebody walked them off the court. And as a coach, you're very, very proud of that kind of attitude that comes out of your players, and it's a direct result of our seniors. Ellis, Cust, Kushmal, and Bowman. The team fed off of them.
I don't know if it was necessarily the case this year, but obviously years past when you got to that weekend, you could have been able to host per the rankings, per other numbers. Illinois Wesleyan certainly was in that boat a couple years ago. They could have hosted per the rankings, per the numbers. Don't know if it was necessarily true this time, but I did get a sense from talking to Robin Hamilton on the air and others that there is a mentality, thinking process. Is it necessarily fair? Would you like to have gotten that opportunity to host in any of these years if you had so deserved it, where it seemed like maybe they actually shipped you instead?
I think I'd have a couple more Final Fours under my belt if we had.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of we don't always have a good sense of history in Division III with a lot of the rollover of the committee, and Illinois Wesleyan did have a chance to host all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it comes down to a geography exam, to be perfectly honest with you. And you can throw the regional rankings out the window. You can throw the records out the window. It comes down to where you're located, and we're never going to win that battle, or we're seldom going to win that battle at Hope College because
this year certainly was a factor.
Yeah, absolutely,
definitely this year. But I was thinking that first time, I think it was legit. You had a legitimate argument, and I'm just. Do you have a sense that that's the mentality right now? Is that we don't want to necessarily have the host? Stevens Point next year could be in that scenario, or is that something that needs to change, or do you understand it?
Don't understand.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't understand it. I mean, I'll go that far, and I think it does put you in an uncomfortable position of wondering, is it in the best interest of your basketball team? I have no doubt about the best interest of your college or your community and things like that. Is it in the best interest of your basketball team? Somebody asked me that the other day, and I said, I'd rather host in the Sweet 16 than host the Final Four if that's what it came down to, because I think by hosting in the Sweet 16, look at the history of this year.
Yeah.
I think you improve your chances to go to the Final Four, and that's what it's all about.
The other thing, too, was interesting with the bracket this year was I flat out had said it on the air, seemed not very future-looking. It didn't look didn't look like they were geographically thinking things out, how they can be creative. I know this has been tough for everybody in the women's side of things and how to change everything down the road and all that. If you were on a committee, what would be the message if you're sitting in those meetings of trying to do things with the bracket?
I'm glad that you asked, because I've honestly done a lot of thinking about it, and I think I've talked to some of the real experienced minds in Division III. If I was king for a day and I got to decide, okay, here's what I would do. I would seed the teams 1 through 16, the top 16 teams, and then I would do everything in my power to separate them geographically in what I would call a snake-like formation. 1 through 4, then 5 through 8, and then 9 through 12. I just think that would give it a better tournament. But I know that there are obviously things that work against that.
Geographics,
financials, and no, let's throw geographics out of it. Let's go financials.
Yeah, financials.
Let's go financials 1 and geographic 2. But that is the playing field that we are on, and as a Division III institution, we need to understand and respect that. We don't have to necessarily, as coaches, like it, but I think we need to understand and respect it. And if we don't like it, then we should look at becoming Division I coaches, where that part is, thrown out to a certain extent.
Sure.
Although now they're doing pods and things like that to increase, fans at the Division I level. But that's what I would do. I would try to find my top 16 teams, base it on the numbers, base it on whatever, and then I would do everything I could, whether it was sending Hope to Rochester, New York, if that's how I'm just throwing things out there. But I mean, and separating, Thomas More, maybe sending them south, and then doing the very best you could to maybe take the top 16 teams as determined by the numbers, and then trying to just separate them.
2 questions before I let you go. Both looking down the road. First off, for your team, you lose some good players this coming year. Vercake, for starters, who is up as a Jostens finalist. We'll find out tomorrow whether she's won it or not. How does it look, though? I mean, just because you lose some talent doesn't mean you don't have talent behind them, to be sure. And I know recruiting certainly Hope has been strong at. So you lose quite a bit. What's next year look like talent-wise, though?
Well, we're going to miss Ellis, Kushmal, Cust, and Bowman, without a doubt. Fortunately, we feel as though we've got some very good players returning. I think it starts with that, but I think that we're bringing in a strong class. We had to have a young lady didn't play this year, a 6'5" player who was a freshman because of a season-ending ankle injury that happened in October. So, couple her with, some of the young people that we have coming in potentially as freshmen next year, and I think that we have the means to not have to completely rebuild. I think that we have the means to still be good. As good as this year, that remains to be seen.
And, of course, next year a lot of changes. You guys always put a pretty strong schedule together. Next year, in some senses, the gloves are off. You can schedule wherever you want for the most part because I think the conference will take care of the 70% in region. And if they don't, it's like a game or something. Have you changed the mentality of the scheduling down the road, or are you kind of taking the same schedule as it has been, which has been good again?
Yeah, I mean, I for the upcoming year, we've got WashU on the schedule. We've got a couple Wisconsin state schools on the schedule. So we feel like we have a very good schedule put together for next year. But I think that the following year, because I was a little skeptical on what really was going to happen, if all those things were really going to fall into place. That following year, I see us, making our schedule even more difficult than it already is. I think we, by playing Calvin on our schedule 3 times a year, it was unfortunate when they bowed out in the first round because I really think that they were, it wasn't a matter of them not being a great team. I think it was a matter of them having a tough night.
Yeah.
And
St. Thomas had a great night.
And a great night. And St. Thomas is that good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we played them in the Sweet 16, the more we watch them on video, we're like, holy smokes. I mean, how did these guys lose, their post player and they're still this good? I think that we will continue to up and play a very difficult schedule, but I think the gloves are off even more, as you said. I mean, why wouldn't you just play everybody?
Yeah. If you can.
And if you can. And I think the area that we struggle the most with is when you start to talk about geography and finances. That cuts both ways for the NCAA. Well, it cuts both ways for us too. And we don't have an unlimited budget. We can't fly. I was going to say
the president has said go ahead.
And so there are times that we're I've talked to Illinois Wesleyan. We'd love to play each other, but we're 6-7 hours apart. And with the weekends being the way that they are with tournaments and everything, we haven't been able to play each other on a weeknight because we're not going to take our kids out of school for a day and stay overnight so that we can play Illinois Wesleyan on the road in a single game. So we both, I think, have wanted to play in the past, but just geography and finances and academics get in the way of those things sometimes.
Sure. Coach Brian Morehouse joining us here on Hoopsville. I appreciate it. I know you got to get back to funner things, I assume.
Yes.
We will see you, obviously, during the weekend. Thanks again. I'm sorry you can't be playing in this, but we're thrilled to be here nonetheless.
Well, I appreciate your coverage, and I appreciate what you do for Division III. I think that you guys do the finest job of anyone in really promoting Division III, understanding and taking time to understand the issues. And from that standpoint, all of Division III should be indebted to you guys because of the job that you do and the class that you do it with. And I think we need your voice so that we can continue to grow the product that is Division III.
Well, great. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you so much.
Thanks a
Enjoy
lot.
the weekend. I assume you will, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Brian Morehouse joining us on Hoopsville. We'll take a break and come back. Pat Coleman will join us, maybe even Gordon Mann. Who knows who else? They might just walk into our humble little abode here at the Hayworth Inn here at Hope College. We'll be back with more Hoopsville right after this.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Back to Hoopsville. We're here from the DeVos Fieldhouse at Hope College in Holland, Michigan. I'm Pat Coleman, and we're joined by DePaul University women's basketball head coach Chris Huffman and Kate Walker, her senior point guard. And for Coach, it's welcome back to the Final Four, and for Kate, welcome to the Final Four.
Thanks.
This will be start 121 for you, if I understand correctly. I know you get 2 more starts no matter what, but you have any perspective, any thoughts that these are your final 2 games here?
I try not to think of it that way. Just try to think of it as making sure that we come out hopefully with a W. So instead of thinking of it as the last 2 games, just thinking of it as another game that I get to play in. So going at it with that mentality helps, make sure that there's no nerves. I don't like getting nervous before games. So to make sure that I just play it as it's another game, maybe a little bit more exciting, but it's still just another game that we're going to go out and play the same type of game that we always play.
Coach, you recruited Kate into a program that obviously had recently come off a national championship, has a strong tradition, and you put a lot of trust in her, getting her the start right away as a freshman.
Yeah, she was talented, and I think we had a junior that we could play there, but we wanted to move the junior to the 2 position, and so it worked out well. Where Kate was a real student of the game, and I think I probably stood next to her on the court at half court all season long, and we have bonded much since then. But she picked it up well. She had a college-ready body and a college-ready game. And the great thing is with her, she's grown every season into a better player.
Coach, this is your 3rd Final Four. One of them right around the corner from you guys practically, one of them halfway across the country, and then here in Michigan. How's the Final Four changed in the last 11, 12 years?
It just seems there's so many more things going on. I think the very first one, it seemed like we drove down the road 30 miles and played a couple games. Now, the press conferences, the banquets, the community service, it really has grown. It's a special event. I think it's maybe added a day where you get in a day earlier too, and there's some more social opportunities on Wednesday night. So it's been very special in the preparation this year.
It seems a little more big time.
A little more big time is exactly right.
You guys are playing a team that defensively, for example, they blocked 20 shots against Whitman in the round of 8 game. They lead the nation in blocked shots. What did you see on tape that that you guys are going to try to combat here on Friday?
Boy, they've got a lot of size out there, and we're undersized, so 2 very, very different types of teams. And you don't know how those really are going to clash until you get out there. But we've been very mindful of our shot selection in the paint, being strong with the basketball, using our shot fakes, inside-outside game. So those are things that we've talked about in preparation.
And you mentioned in the news conference that you guys used your practice players. That's got to help you guys in terms of their size as well?
Oh, absolutely. So it's great to have the men come in and be able to take up some of that paint, block some shots for us. We kind of give them free reign to swat that ball whenever they can. And so you play on the ground a little bit more, and you're looking for a little bit stronger finishes.
Kate, how'd that help you guys out this week?
Well, the guys are, it's always a nice addition to have them coming in. And I think it just helped, like Coach said, emulate a little bit what we couldn't do as some of the girls on the team. So having them in there, it helped us realize that maybe we do need to, make sure we're kicking it out more, make sure we're being stronger when we do, when we are able to get it into the paint and power it up there instead of just, lightly putting it off the glass. So it just helped put things into perspective and actually make it real. So instead of coaches saying we need to do this, this, and this, it helps make it real so that we're more likely to be successful later on, hopefully.
You guys have been #1 since Thanksgiving, basically. Obviously undefeated all season. I would say that coming to the national semifinals, you probably actually have less of a target on your back as the #1 undefeated team now because everybody here is playing in the final weekend for a reason. Have you felt that target at all this season, and does it feel any different now?
Well, I think that the target on our backs that helps motivate teams also helps motivate us a little bit. It helps us to make sure that we stay focused in practice and do the things that we need to do to be successful because we know that there is a larger target on our back. But now going into this, I think, it's the Final Four. Anything can happen in the NCAA tournament, and especially in the Final Four. So, yeah, probably less of a target, I suppose, but, hopefully it doesn't matter. Hopefully prepare the same way regardless.
Coach, you were a preseason #4, and you're here. So, first of all, thanks for making us look good. I know that's what Dave would want me to say, right, Dave? Yeah. Okay.
Great job, Dave.
Yeah. So, but again, how's the target on your back felt for you as a coach?
I think the first week I thought, oh my gosh, there's no way we're #1, and this is really uncomfortable. But we since there pretty quickly forgot about the ranking, really, and we really have tried to simplify it. And I'm a broken record. We don't look at records, we don't look at standings, or I don't, and we look at preparation of how do we beat a team, what are their strengths, and to keep it as simple as that has really helped me. So I haven't felt the pressure. I don't know if we're #1, but we've had to carry the burden. So right now it's anyone's game. You're right, the Final Four, anyone can win it, and we know it's a very, very even playing field.
Not to roll the clock back 28 games or so, but at that point you were coming off a weekend where you played WashU and you played Illinois Wesleyan. In any given year, those would be teams you could see in a Final Four.
Oh, definitely. Wesleyan won it last year, and WashU usually wins it, right? 5 or 6.
So I lost count. Sorry.
So and they both coaches I have a lot of respect for. We see them every year, and playing them makes us better. There's no doubt about it. We want to play that tough schedule so we can grow. We've also played Babson and Messiah, and so we feel like we've had the knowledge of seeing those teams and helping us, progress throughout the season.
Babson is a team that Williams has played. Also, Williams, of course, your national semifinal opponent here. I don't know if you ever had a chance to get your hands on Babson-Williams tape, but does seeing Babson give you any idea of what it's like to face Williams?
Yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes it becomes your matchup with an opponent rather than someone else's. So we watch that and take a peek at it, but I don't know that there's a lot of carryover for us.
One of the big stories over the last couple of weeks for you guys has been the status of Alex Gasaway. I saw her. We're not allowed to watch practice, so I'm not actually saying this thing I'm about to say. Saw her sitting on the sidelines during practice earlier today. What's her status for Friday?
She's a go for the weekend. She's worked her butt off to make sure she can be ready on game day, and it's inspiring to see her out there. She went down with her injury, and it was a crushing blow to our team and our seniors and to Alex. And she's worked so hard, and when she got her first minutes, gosh, who was that against? 4 games ago or 5 games ago.
That would be Maryville? Right?
Maryville, and the crowd went crazy and just uplifted the team. So we know she's an option for the weekend.
Is that a Willis Reed moment?
A little bit of a Willis Reed moment, yes.
Kate, do you get the reference?
She's too young.
Yeah, I didn't think so. We'll put it on the website later for those of you who don't know what the Willis Reed moment is. That's okay. As I mentioned, this is a relatively short trip for you guys. Do you expect to have a lot of fan support coming up?
Well, there's a lot of buzz on campus, so we think we might have a good following. If that means, maybe hopefully 500 people in the place, would be very thrilled with that.
Because you guys have played here, obviously, when Hope has played here, and you've played here in some pretty, this is a great building, but it's also a really intense atmosphere when Hope is playing, especially late in the season. Here, you guys have, I think, even more of an advantage because you've seen the building, you've played in the building, but you don't have to deal with Hope's fans.
We're thankful for that. They have such great fans and a great school. They're great hosts for this tournament, so we're very happy to be here. We hope it gives us a little bit of advantage. I don't know that it does, really. The lights are pretty bright down there. The rims seem very, very small. No, I'm just kidding. It'll be good to have another practice tomorrow and kind of get organized downstairs.
Kate, you talked, and Ellie Pearson talked about in the news conference before this that you guys are really competitive with each other.
Yeah.
How does that play out? And I chose you. Sorry, Ellie.
No, Ellie and I are very competitive in general, so we make sure that the competition is high all the time at practice, and her in the post court and me in the guard court. But I'm so happy that she's on my team. Let's go ahead and say that, because if we played against each other, I don't think it'd be pretty. actually, Ellie and I are roommates as well. And so, like, even living together, it's like everything's a competition for us. It's it's all the time for us. So I think that's what makes makes practice fun, a lot of fun sometimes. And that's she's got to pull Allison and Ellie off of each other every now and then. I think that's, kind of a great thing to have. It's that type of a team that you're having to yank off of one another because you're afraid you're going to get hurt at that point. So you gotta control them. Instead of trying to make them go harder, you have to rein them back. So playing with people that are competitive like Ellie and Allison and some other, I can name multiple teammates. It's a lot of fun, and I think that's what helps get us where we are right now.
In the course of any Hoopsville interview, Dave always says, "So, Coach, tell me about the rest of your team." So I'm just going to throw that open-ended question out there and let you talk about absolutely everybody else you want to talk to about it.
It's a good group,
You probably don't need this sheet nearly as much as I do, just in case.
Well, we've had so many people, we've talked lately about, we've had so many MVPs this year, people that have stepped up in certain games or a certain half or whatever it might be. Savannah Treese has had a great sophomore year for us. She can score a lot of different ways, and we need her on the courts. Allie Ross, the second half of her season has been All-American-like. She is very valuable on both ends of the floor where she can really go and defend someone and hopefully disrupt some offense. Allison Stevens has had a wonderful junior year, and she has stepped up with Gasaway's injury and stepped into the starting lineup, and she gives us such energy on the rebounding end and defensively that we need her on the floor. Kat Malloy is a kid who started last year and has had a different role coming off the bench this year, but she gives us a spark, and she came in and hit 2 threes, I think, against WashU back-to-back and gave us a little breathing room there. Who else am I forgetting here? So Emma comes in at the backup in the point guard position and has done a tremendous job for us. Erin McGinnis is another one in the paint, especially with Gasaway being limited, who has stepped up and really played beautifully the last 3 weeks. And Lauren Abendroth is another one who can really light it up from the perimeter and has had a great sophomore year.
You guys have outscored opponents by an average of over 26 points a game, but in a close, tight game, a tight competed game, how deep would your rotation go? How many players?
We're pretty comfortable going 10 deep. It comes down to times where we might have to limit it. So 8.5 to 10 is where our comfort zone is right now. But those other players behind number 10 are ready to play, like a Hannah Lukemeyer, who could come in and give us great minutes if she's needed, and on down the line.
Hoopsville, Coach, we always give the coach the final word, so take it away.
I want to thank my team for a tremendous effort this year in making it such a special season. I want to thank D3 Hoops for all that you do in the sport of basketball for us little people, and it's not so little. It's not so little. It's what a great place for us to be, so thank you.
Thanks. It's Chris Huffman and Kate Walker of DePaul University. We'll be back with more Hoopsville here in a couple minutes.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
In the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Broadcasting live from the Hayworth Inn in, I'm sorry, your volume not there. How's that? A little bit better? Does that work? Yeah, we'll try that one. There we go. Hayworth Inn is what I was trying to say on the campus of Hope College in Holland, Michigan. Dave McHugh. Gordon Mann now joining us. Pat Coleman, who you saw in the pregame. I want to thank Coach Brian Morehouse once again for joining us here. He clearly wanted an excuse to step away from the banquet.
It's got to be a tough thing to be in.
Yeah.
It's just got to be tough to be there.
It's 4 years in a row, or four out of the last 6. I know coaches who, when they lose, they don't even want to think or talk about basketball, and he's got to host the team that beat him the next week.
Yeah, well, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, last year, for example, I'm not sure I even saw Brian Morehouse when I was here for the Women's Final Four, but, they had the whole time to adjust to it. They weren't even selected for the tournament, which was a disaster in and of itself.
Yeah.
But they had some time to adjust to it. He was, this is a pretty gut-wrenching loss, which is still pretty raw, obviously.
Right.
But, kudos to him for coming on the show. But it
seemed eager, almost.
Tough position to be in, to be hosting and then have to be very public and very public-facing.
Well, of course, they went through it a few years ago. Illinois Wesleyan went through it more recently than that, and then obviously Hope this year. Tough break for those 3 teams, and you kind of alluded to it with him, and we talked with this. I flat out asked Robin Hamilton back on Matchup Monday's show, is it necessarily fair or that you seem to have a habit of shipping the Final Four host away from their gym, even though they deserve the host? And again, I don't know if Hope really deserved the host this time around.
Well,
with numbers and geography.
Yeah, well, with geography they couldn't.
Right.
I think they deserved to host, or at least be in the conversation.
Yeah,
them or Simpson, Whitewater. When I talked about it on the
Simpson
on the opening
didn't
show,
put to host.
Right, but regardless. Whitewater being a central location is why that is.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk a lot more about women's basketball. We should talk about the men's side,
absolutely,
too, which goes into the Sweet 16 this
weekend.
weekend.
We'll be in Salem, Virginia next weekend, obviously, for the quarterfinals and semifinals and NABC All-Star Game. Of course, quickly before we go into the games, the final 2 slots of the NABC All-Stars were voted in by the fans, and nearly 85,000
Actually,
votes.
A little bit over 86,000.
86,000 votes, though. You and I both noticed the creativeness in the votors.
Well,
which was good.
That's fine.
That means they cared.
Exactly. Good organized effort, for example, by the folks at Buena Vista who were unable to get Wes Nordquist into the game, but good attempt on their part. And be honest with you,
and great candidates. I mean, I had to think that one over for a while. I could have gone for any of those guys. We got a guy coming from Rhodes, which I think is terrific for their program. And then the other one I'm forgetting off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You can help me.
It's Spencer Niekamp from Capital.
Right, from Capital. So, great opportunities there. And, of course, we also saw, at least seen one of the coaches has apparently been announced, or at least.
Both of them. It's
both. Okay. I saw Jeff Gamber from York is who I saw.
And the former coach from Albion who coached in the past, Mike Turner. Did I get that right?
Yes, I think you're right. Correct. Yeah. Those are good coaches right there. Jeff, of course, was an assistant, I think, 1 year, and he basically said he didn't do anything. He just kept track of timeouts like a good assistant would.
He was the timeout coach.
He was the timeout
in the
coach,
All-Star game.
In the get back coach.
Nice.
It was fun to see those guys. It's going to be great to see those guys coach.
Yeah, and we'll find out the rest of the rosters for those who are asking either on Sunday night or early on Monday. Yeah, and the reason why is, of course, some of those players may be still playing this week, might be eliminated. Them have to make some adjustments based on their number 1 and number 2 picks from each region.
It is funny because you'll see on the post-up boards every once in a while or through tweets, hey, how come this guy's not a chance to vote? Well,
he's probably on
the team. He doesn't need it.
He's on the roster. Yeah. They're just waiting to announce that part.
John DeBartolomeo? Yeah, he'll be in the game.
He's in the game.
Let's
just chalk that up. Of course, we do have 8 games this weekend, 16 teams remaining, which is I still can't wrap my mind around this. I was actually traveling here listening to some Big Ten basketball. I'm so used to that this weekend, which is normal, is the first weekend of the NCAA tournament.
Right.
And so, you run into coaches who are sitting back, relaxing, watching all the games, and it's a little bit different this year. But we got 16 teams, 8 sites remaining. I think you look at it, there are some incredibly interesting matchups on the men's side of things. For starters, Calvin versus St. Thomas is going to be a heavyweight battle, I think. St. Thomas looks like they can't lose. But Calvin has been showing that, you know what, we are better than what our numbers indicated per NCAA.
Yeah, and of course, the sidelights to this first, it's a rematch of the women's first-round game or a rematch of the 2012 women's volleyball national championship game. But, one of the things that St. Thomas has going for it is something that's not going to faze Calvin at all. And it's, St. Thomas has a pretty good home court advantage. They have a really rowdy student fan section. Calvin plays at Hope at least once a year. That's not going to be a factor for them. What's going to be a factor is, St. Thomas is doing what they've done all year. Is they've got depth. They've got guys who have bought into the defensive concept that John Tower has kind of inherited from Steve Fritz and continues to pass down. And they're going to, that's going to be, St. Thomas is going to continue to go 8, 10, 12 guys deep at them and keep coming at them in waves.
The thing that impressed me about St. Thomas when I watched them this year is 2 A's, aggressive and athletic.
Yeah.
Their forwards are very aggressive and athletic. They're not just going to sit back and grind it out and grab rebounds when they can. They're gonna generate turnovers. They're obviously a legit team, and I wonder if Calvin. I haven't seen as much of Calvin this year, but I think that the forwards for St. Thomas really make the difference because they differentiate them from. You can find a lot of good guard play, but the style of play the forwards play at St. Thomas, I think, is
And
special.
St. Thomas can go 3 forwards, and that 3 can really play a nice swing role, like a traditional 3 can play. He can go inside, he could step outside. It's that real traditional 3 that sometimes is kind of lost to a more of a guard orientated these days.
Well, if you think of, we saw John Nance at the Final Four 2 years ago.
Yeah.
As a guy coming off the bench, that's their starter right now. He's
scary.
He scored 16 in that championship game, and that was unusual for him for that kind of offense. And it is still a little bit now, but he's a real defensive lockdown guy. What they don't have is they don't have the Tyler Nikolai that they had 2 years ago. They don't have one guy who can come in and take over and be the scorer, but they've got a bunch of guys who can do it on any different night. I saw a guy
team-orientated, probably.
Yeah, and I saw a guy who hit 2 3-pointers for them in the second round game last weekend, who I'd never heard of, frankly. And I've seen St. Thomas play a couple times. I don't go as often as I should, them being the next town over. But I was like,
down the street.
I went over to the guy who writes for Tommy Media, basically their student newspaper, and I said, "Who's this guy?" I admit I don't go 10 deep like they do.
I remember going to Augustana, and I think we saw in the first game there at Augustana 2 years ago, it was like, wait a minute, who just stepped up? I didn't have him on my short list of guys to keep track of, so that's the advantage St. Thomas
and that hasn't changed. Yeah.
No, and of course Calvin, again, I think we all thought they're better than what the NCAA numbers were. And again, the NCAA numbers are the NCAA numbers. That's what criteria and all that stuff's based on. We can go in circles on that. We all knew they were better than that. I think the loss to Wheaton had a lot of people scratching their heads. It's back in November, but still it was one of those losses you're like, okay, how do I read that? How do I look into it? But right now, obviously winning at Rose-Hulman, which I don't think was overly surprising. Winning at Stevens Point, again, not overly surprising without Tillema and the rest. Stevens Point was just not the team anyone thought it could be.
Not without guys healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, Tillman and other guys are back. That's a whole nother ball game. So I'm looking forward to that one. Of course, the winner of that one will take on Virginia Wesleyan or Williams. Williams getting the nod based on winning percentage in region over basically Virginia Wesleyan doesn't lose the ODAC championship. This is a much different equation.
Or if Virginia Wesleyan doesn't lose 4 games in a row.
Right, no, I don't.
What he's about to say.
But not all of them were in region. But what I'm basically saying is, you just get one game goes a different way, and this could be a different equation. But this is not an unfamiliar. For the starters for Virginia Wesleyan, played Williams a couple of years ago. Right. Pretty much, I think it was this game, if I'm not mistaken, or at least right around this round. It was one game or one round later. I don't remember, somewhere in that vicinity, and it was at Williams. This is not unfamiliar territory for the Marlins.
Yeah, and that's another team. They've had a lot of kids who have gone. I mean, they went and played at Whitewater in the tournament last year.
Yeah.
This is just like Calvin to St. Thomas is not going to phase their kids. This is not going to phase the Marlins, and they have. I think it'll be interesting because they have a lot of speed and quickness down low, and Williams has a lot of size around the perimeter, and their big guy Mike Mayer inside is not quick, but he is big, and he's going to clog up the lane. And so for the for DJ Woodmore and those guys, I think it's a great matchup. It's someone said to me last week when Catholic played Williams, and obviously they have an East Coast bias, so they're going to weigh those two teams differently. They said this is like Kansas, Indiana. Well, if that was like Kansas, Indiana, then I don't know. This is like Kansas and I don't know, something really good. Michigan,
guard orientated.
That's
a tough one.
Yeah. But it's another meeting of programs that over the last 8 years are really tentpole programs for Division III. Well established, well coached. The fans will, the people will be up for it. They don't go on spring break yet. Candidly, the team that probably gets hurt the most from that is the Williams women's basketball team, because that town is built around Williams College. I mean, literally,
if that game was at
wrapped
Virginia
around
Wesleyan, there may
Williams
be more
College.
fans coming here.
Yeah, so but it's going to be a great environment, and it'll be a lot of fun, and just I guess one of two NESCAC-ODAC matchups this week.
Well, the other one we'll jump into
champ
that one.
versus champ later. This is at-large versus at-large.
Yeah, right, exactly. We'll get to that one because I'm kind of going left to right, down or top to bottom to left to right. But I'm looking forward to this one because I thought Christopher Newport matched up pretty well with Virginia Wesleyan last round. Christopher Newport, I thought it was a pretty good team this year. They had some bumps in the road, and I wouldn't have been surprised if the captains had come out of that game. I also, you were there. Kearney doesn't get injured with 12 minutes left for Catholic. Williams maybe doesn't get here. That's a much tighter game than the score really indicated down the road. So, both of those games could have gone in a different direction. We'd be talking very differently about the matchups here. And really, I think that's going to be a fascinating game. It's too bad we can't get to Williamstown for that. Of course, Mary Hardin
Just
Baylor.
watch the archive video later.
Yeah, there you go. And Mary Hardin Baylor, no rust there after 13 days off, destroyed Concordia, Texas. The score looks closer than it really was.
Well, I mean, I guess it is. Yeah, exactly. It did get closer at the end. It was only 25.
But
now, when it's 117 to 92, 25 is like if it's 18 in regular. But you're right. It was out of hand for the entire second half. It was not a close game.
And of course, they'll take on Whitworth, and this is a really interesting battle. These two teams faced off near the beginning of the season. I think it was the first game actually for Mary Hardin Baylor. The game was second game. I'm sorry, they played Southwestern first. Then they played Whitworth out there at Whitworth. But as you pointed out, I was talking to Coach DeWeese while you were chatting with me on during Hoopsville. Different crowd though. I mean, they saw a couple hundred there for the first game. They're going to look at probably 1,700 for this game. Changes the dynamic immensely, and Whitworth gets to host this big game. That's even bigger.
I think the host factor is the real story here. Whitworth, I mean, I've seen a lot of the Whitworth fans saying, finally, the way the tournament lines up, they're never going to be 500 miles close to another school.
Unless a bunch of Skyacks get in.
Yeah. Well, even
or
that,
a bunch
I'm
of
not sure it's
Northwesterns.
500 miles away. But,
well, they still got to play each other somehow.
This is a chance for them to host. And it's also maybe Whitworth's best chance to get to Salem.
Yeah.
Quality program that always has to play at WashU, at Illinois Wesleyan, at Stevens Point,
at Worcester
whatever.
Last year, yeah.
Guilford. They went to Guilford once, too. Didn't they?
Right. Well,
I think they might have,
because they're on an island, you can send them almost anywhere because you're sending them somewhere.
Right.
So,
yep.
This is their chance to put that program, and I realize it won't be a Final Four game necessarily. It could be if they win one, but this is their chance to put themselves in that and in our almost ordained Northwest Conference, American Southwest Conference NCAA playoff event of some sort.
Pick a sport, any sport, really.
Exactly. And I think the matchups here is going to be great. Again, you almost have to throw the first game out because
it's a long time.
Well, it was a long time ago.
Well, it was a long time ago, but Mary Hardin Baylor had lost their key player the game before. They were just starting to recover from that. Well, they've recovered from that. Yeah. They're clearly a different team now than Whitworth had seen beforehand. And even Whitworth has changed between now and then, and we were talking 30 games.
Well, it's interesting too. Of the top 10 teams, Whitworth, it was pointed out this week, is the only one now that has not beaten another top 25 team.
Interesting.
Middlebury was on that list.
To double check that too.
Middlebury was on that list till they beat Cortland in the second round, and Whitworth, their claim to fame, other than the fact that they're 25-3 in other games, is they lost a close game to St. Thomas back in November, December.
Yeah,
that's what their big deal is right now.
Yeah, and of course their conference hasn't been that big of a challenge. Whitman was pretty good. I think Whitman may have been under what they were expected to do this year.
They were under what I expected.
They were under what I expected, but they were still a tough challenge Those games went into overtime, and they split the series. Of course, the winner of that game will take on the winner of St. Thomas and our Cinderella, Morrisville State. St. Mary's, the other Saint, and Morrisville State. And I know those at Seahawk Land are thrilled to be able to play this game at home. It was interesting because I was talking to one of the assistant coaches for St. Mary's ahead of the Alvernia game, and I'm like, this is going to be interesting. I kind of like Alvernia. They're deep. They're big. Coach Miller is pretty solid here. And he goes, no, we got something. We just, the confidence he had was almost eerie. And I'm like, I hope he's not way high and they're going to bust. Clearly, they saw something they could get past Alvernia, and then at this point, you can't count the Seahawks out.
Well, you can't count either of these teams out. So let me ask you, Keith. I mean, you spent some time looking into this team. You talked to Joe Smith earlier.
Yeah.
This is a team that was 3-4 against a not particularly stellar schedule, right?
Yep.
They lost to Oswego, they lost to Clarkson, they lost to Hartwick, and they lost to Keuka, all before December 5th.
Two of those were okay losses, maybe. A tough challenge. Hartwick, okay. Oswego State's a good team. The other two, that raises a lot. Clarkson raises a lot of questions. Keuka raises a lot of questions.
And then they're 20-1 cents.
Yeah.
Did you get any? Did we get any sense of what that is? I know obviously there's a player who's played only 18 games.
Yeah, and I think they dealt with a little bit of trying to figure things out at the beginning of the season. What I find it fascinating is I keep looking at their stats, and what I notice is there isn't one guy that you key on. They've got, I think, 8 guys who can put the ball in the basket, and each night it's somebody else who's leading the team. It's not very, you can't go in, I don't think, necessarily and shut one guy down. You're looking at 5, 6, 7 guys who all can contribute. And we notice that late in a season, especially this time of year, the teams that are very well distributed in points and team and ball and all that, they're the ones who succeed. And I think you go up against Ramapo, who certainly had a lot of talent, but I think struggled a little bit in that team chemistry for some reason, and they were able to get past them. I was very surprised he got past Rhode Island College. Coach Walsh is a terrific coach. Nothing was going to sneak past him. But they get that into overtime, and usually that's the kind of game that the away team's going to just fold. And they won that one. I think St. Mary's has got to be a little careful here. They're playing third game, I believe now, without Devin Spencer, who has a broken finger.
Did you guys get that on watching on camera?
They got past Wesley in overtime in the CAC, which surprised me. I thought they were going to lose that. The first game against MIT, I thought MIT's inside game was going to be way too good for St. Mary's, and I don't think I really got an answer as to why St. Mary's won that, except that Cates certainly was in foul trouble. That did not help them. And so now and then they go up against Alvernia. Again, a team with inside presence. St. Mary's, remember, they lost their biggest shot blocker and inside presence before the season started when he transferred. So, St. Mary's has kind of reinvented themselves. I don't know if they finally run out of gas, though, with Devin Spencer not being in the game. He's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if at some point you need his experience.
It's the slow pace of this tournament.
It's true.
Is he capable of coming back?
Broken finger?
I don't know. I have not seen the X-rays, so
I haven't seen the X-rays either.
And I didn't.
My gut tells, and from everything I'm hearing, he's out.
I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
But at the same time, Laguerre is getting more experience, and more maybe the experience that Spencer had.
Right. The other thing I wonder about, and Pat, you might be the only one who could talk to this. Morrisville at Ramapo on Nyack College has got as many people at it as there are watching, this broadcast.
Hey. Oh, we're up to 22.
Wow.
Well, okay.
All right, everybody, we're going to kill his microphone. Keep talking.
Picture 22 people in a gym watching a basketball game.
You're right.
I don't know what type of crowd Rhode Island College draws, and I know the Nyack games don't. And these schools are not traditional rivals. They're several miles away from each other. Does that matter? Does Morrisville finally play in an environment? And I don't know. Maybe Rhode Island College was that last weekend.
I'm trying to remember.
I would think generally Rhode Island College, I thought, draws pretty well.
Okay.
But
the scary part for St. Mary's is they are on spring break.
Oh, well, then
I think on the tail end. Well, on the tail end, and the last couple times I've been to St. Mary's where the spring break was effect, they still got fans there.
Okay.
That place is tough to play when they've got fans there.
That is true.
Tough
actually, place to play.
I'll buy that. You're right. He's on that. I would say one thing too. Here we're talking about lineup changes. Since Mickey Davis joined the team, they're 18-1.
Yeah.
And they were.
But I mean, you look at it then again.
That.
You got five.
No, he's average. He's the team leading scorer, 12.2 a game.
I'm saying 5 in double figures.
Right. Yeah.
And not a steep drop off to the rest.
Right. Yep.
And that's what I think is the scariest part.
They could be. I mean, obviously they are that good from the course of the past 2 weeks. Are they good enough to win this game? Yeah, I'd certainly think so.
Let me pose this one to you. They go out there, they lose by, let's say they lose by 15. Where are they on your top 25 ballot?
Well, they're on it.
They're on it.
Morrisville State is on my top 25 ballot now.
You beat 2 top 25s.
Were they before the...
No, nobody had voted for them, I'm pretty sure.
2 top 25s on the road. First game certainly neutral, but still, you beat 2 top 25s, really top 20s.
It's not like they were 16 and 11 coming in.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and they didn't have that. Yeah, they didn't have that many losses to begin with, and they keep winning. I think that's the key. They keep winning.
That'll definitely be a first for that conference. The conference has never had a top
This is not
25
Casanova versus Williams.
No,
which the folks from Williams still remember. They were talking about it last week when I was up there.
123 to 57.
But I mean, Ramapo was 18, I think, off the top of my head. I think Rhode Island College was.
To be honest with you, even if they're
St. Mary's 11.
Yeah. Regardless of the numbers, Morrisville State has earned its way into the top 25. It will definitely be on my final top 25 ballot. Just a question of where at this point. Absolutely.
And I think that's a great matchup there. There are a lot of factors in play there, and people will get to watch the game this week as well, which St. Mary's has made an effort to do.
And not the only.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Not the only.
Not
the only. NEAC team to reach it this far. SUNY IT did it a couple years ago with
twice, I think.
D. Lou Brown when they got obliterated by Williams in the Sweet 16, but got there.
Right.
But their road was much easier because that was at St. Lawrence, and it was back when it was 2 weekends, and they had a neutral game and then one an overtime game, and then got to go with Williams.
So this was a little harder in the sense of certainly more games, traveling, too, and of course they're the road warriors. Let's go to the upper right, unless you guys want to take a break first, but I think we're on a roll here. Amherst, again, showing that they didn't have much rust. No surprise there. Nothing against Plattsburgh State. The matchup just wasn't going to go their way. Unless Amherst came out absolutely cold. Tough to do at Lafrac.
Well, I think for Amherst, too, you talked to Coach Hickson going into the bye. That was a team that really could make good use of the bye. They had enough kids banged up that it was them getting a few days off. I don't think was a bad thing for them.
He was going to give his 2 workmen and Toomey like 4 days off before.
Yeah.
Of course, he was apparently going stir crazy because according to GP Gromacki, he's coming into his office trying to help him with his game plan.
So hey, what can we do?
Yeah, no, exactly. They take on Randolph-Macon, and this may be this is a team that was in the preseason top 25. Had a brutal start to the season.
Right, and looked really. Well, you saw.
Well, they looked rough. They looked like couldn't figure it out. They looked good, but they didn't look like they could put 40 together. They lose the first. They lose 3 of the first 4, all against top 25, either preseason or first week teams. Yeah. Unbelievable group who, I don't think anyone realizes, have been on a roll for a while. They have 1 loss, I think, since mid-January. Of course, we always see the strength. The schedule numbers were through the roof. Mm-hmm. The results versus regionally ranked opponents, they had like 16 out of 27 games or something. They win the ODAC championship against Virginia Wesleyan. In the last 10 minutes of that game, dominating fashion. They just absolutely blew the doors off in the last 10 minutes of that game. Then they go and win, of course, on the neutral game against Stevens. I'm not overly surprised there. But to win...
No, I think that was on my bracket, yeah.
Yeah, I think I had it too. But to win at WPI...
Well, at Assumption.
At Assumption, right, 3 miles down the road. Long trip for starters, but WPI had been playing very good basketball this season.
Well, here's my take on that. We all know from the tradition that it's kind of passed down from when Coach Rhodes was coaching to Nate Davis. It's always been a hard-nosed team, hard-nosed defensive team. You got to remember that WPI, for as successful as they were this year, they were really young.
Well, they were early.
Yeah. They arrived a year early.
Yeah, they did.
So I think I could see why a veteran team that gets really tested in its conference and in its non-conference play this year could go up and win that game. I just think that WPI's year is next year.
Yeah, I think that's the scary part. Is unfortunately WPI has shown high. Look who we are. And next year everyone's like, yeah, we know who you are now. That could be interesting. But Randolph-Macon versus Amherst. I said it last week. I think this is the last team Amherst wants to see right now.
Other than Williams,
I'm just saying the way they're playing.
Or St. Thomas.
I think some of the matchups. I think, as much as
don't put that by don't put that by the committee. Sure, Amherst St. Thomas.
Amherst is good. They've got good inside presence. They're a tough unit, but Randolph-Macon's showing right now they can play inside, they can play outside. Their defense is certainly good. I don't know if Amherst. This is a really good matchup. Amherst fans think it's a great matchup. I don't think it's a great matchup.
For Amherst, you mean?
For Amherst.
Yeah, I think Randolph-Macon could win this game. I'm pretty sure Amherst will, but that Randolph-Macon has certainly shown over the last 2 weeks that it can take long trips and come away with W's. But I think Amherst has a lot of firepower, and that's
luckily this is a shorter trip than going to.
Yeah, it's like 50 miles shorter than going to Worcester.
Shorter. Of course, down in the other corner, it is the other somewhat surprise. I don't know how you look at this, but Worcester versus Cabrini. As good as Walton Moss is, and we all agree he's darn good, I didn't see them getting past Hampden-Sydney with Hampden-Sydney's inside presence, and I'll flat out say it right now, the Tigers were a disappointment.
I know you liked Hampden-Sydney quite a bit.
I really did, and they just kind of seemed, and I think some of the ODAC felt they just laid an egg in the last few games. But then Cabrini goes to Ohio Wesleyan, and Coach Mike DeWitt was, ready for them, and Walton Moss put on a show.
And let me tell you this, too. That would be another game where I'd really like to go back and watch the tape on it, because that was a pretty fiercely contested battle. And my understanding is what's the best way to put this?
How is it?
That the officiating played an interesting role in that game, shall we say. Not necessarily, Atlantic 10 quarterfinal sense, but, something along those lines.
Well, of course,
I know there were. If I remember, there's either tees should have been called or tees were called, and it was a pretty contentious battle.
Of course, no refs in the Great Lakes. Essentially, it could have been, but not from an area that Ohio Wesleyan is in. Of course, no refs from the Mid-Atlantic. They do shake these things up, so they're not familiar with the teams, and the teams aren't familiar with them. May have played a role. But so now you got Cabrini versus Worcester. Worcester absolutely blew the doors off the gym with Dickinson, and I'm not surprised. Mm-hmm. I think Dickinson got a reasonable first-round game with Marietta at home, and so I think they got a chance to be in that game. But Worcester certainly showed who the boss was. Can Worcester do that against Cabrini, do you think? I mean, granted, Cabrini's a very different team than Dickinson. Or is this a hard-fought, down-to-the-wire game?
Well, it's another one of those games where, again, Cabrini has the best individual player in the building, and that makes that, especially when it's a guy who's a guard, this time of year, that makes a huge difference.
And Cabrini looked, when I saw their last couple of games leading up into the NCAA tournament, they're not obviously the same team as last year when Corey Lemons was the guy and Walton Moss was, the complement to him. Walton Moss is the guy, and there's not a complement that is at that level. But
what's his name? Is he about the only guy?
Well, Fran Rafferty is a real nice outside player. He's a compact player. They've got Jeremy Knowles, who's a nice weapon off the bench. The inside has sort of been a little bit of a rotating cast of characters for them. John. I think it's either John Miller or John Boyd, who's the forward, and Goran Dulak is the other one who's sort of in and out of the starting lineup. That team looked like, when I saw them play Keystone in their conference championship, they looked like they were together. They looked like they were ready. So I wasn't stunned to see them win both of those games. They're both tough games. Honestly, I figured when they got by Hampden-Sydney that they'd get by Ohio Wesleyan. I don't know if they can play with Worcester tomorrow night. I mean, Walton Moss, we've seen individual star players.
Not going to play with them tomorrow night anyway.
Oh.
I keep getting screwed up. I keep thinking today's Friday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. It's Thursday. Sorry. Some people might be listening to this on Friday, and it will be tomorrow night.
Well,
they could be listening on Saturday, and we really screw them all.
The other thing we see relatively frequently is teams that are, and Cabrini's not without talent outside of Walton Moss, but teams that have one shooting star. Rochester, other teams, Rochester this year, other teams in other years. It's hard to carry somebody even at the Division I level. If you think about the real shooting stars of like the Glenn Robinsons and the Shaquille O'Neals and these guys who are really unique, wonderful talents. you only go so far, and so far is usually about the second or third round.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the Morrisville State point. Back to that, again, this wide-ranging team with lots of options.
You need balance with a guy who can take over.
Yes.
That I do believe you need both, because at some point, if you're all balanced and you don't have a go-to player, eventually when the game gets tight, nobody knows who.
Well, and last year
I
think that's what helped Cabrini. They had Lemons,
right?
But Walton Moss was there,
right.
So was Fran,
yeah.
Rafferty, and others. Wasn't by the way, was Walton Moss the one who missed the shot to try and tie it at the end of regulation with Whitewater?
I'm going to ask the people who were at the game.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
Not me. Couldn't tell you.
I was here.
I'm blanking. I think it was Walton, and I don't think it was the best look he wanted. It wasn't necessarily his doing. But I agree with you. I think Worcester's just too. They're not going to be surprised by anything, and Walton Moss is going to have a phenomenal game, or Fran Rafferty is going to have to come out of not out of the woodworks. He certainly was up for all region and deservedly so, and others. So but then again, we should be honest. This is a top 25 matchup if Walton Moss is playing all season.
Absolutely, it's a top 15 matchup if Walton Moss is playing all season.
Yeah, absolutely, because Cabrini doesn't lose games early on that they had no business losing. The loss to Virginia Wesleyan isn't by 25.
Right.
It may be a loss, but it's not by 25, which is a big factor.
They don't lose to Immaculata at home in those types of games.
Right, exactly. Of course, then you get down to the next set of games. We're into our infamous bracket of death this year. Illinois Wesleyan versus North Central. I think these two teams know each other pretty darn well.
Probably true.
Just slight gut feeling here. Of course, this will be played at the hangar at North Central. North Central has now played 3 games at home, but this will only be the second one at home. They
in
played,
its building, yeah.
They played last week at Benedictine. And by the way, I should just a quick note: Benedictine, Nyack College, Lehman, Assumption. It's really nice that these schools were willing to step up and say, "Yeah, we'll help you in this unique scenario." And the NCAAs go, "Yeah, we'll give you those games as well." Again, I'll say this: I've said it before. If this is a pod scenario, these other campus scenarios are probably not happening.
And maybe this game isn't happening at this point.
And this game probably wouldn't be happening
I'm hopeful. I can't guarantee it, obviously.
Well, I would say, you and I were working on it, if we could have gotten Marietta West, we could have helped break some things up.
You can get Marietta West, just not everywhere.
Yeah, we were 3 miles from Illinois Wesleyan.
They could get to Illinois Wesleyan, but they couldn't get somewhere else that I really wanted to get them to. I think like somewhere, one of the Chicago teams.
Was obviously, it was like the bus would literally stop outside the city.
But to be an interesting game, obviously, Illinois Wesleyan's probably going to have a little bit of an extra chip on its shoulder because North Central's the one that ended their run at a perfect season in the CCIW, the thing that hasn't happened in any of our lifetimes.
40 years.
Oh, crap. It has happened in my lifetime.
73, I think, was the last time.
Yeah, so it did. But point being is, this is another game like Whitewater and North Central last week. This is a game that really shouldn't be played at this point in the bracket. But, that's, again, the NCAA, as Coach Morehouse put it earlier,
Well, Coach DeWitt was flat out honest. He's like, we just ran into some pickles. We could not break up some of this stuff. And you and I doing the bracketing, if we could have just gotten one more West team or one more Midwest team, and by the way, we didn't get any extra Midwest or West teams, and they didn't get them in either.
We had the same teams out of that part of the country.
Yeah, that area. We could, Marietta, I think, throws a curveball in there. If Mount Union had won a game that maybe gives you the little bit more flexibility that you would have liked. So obviously a lot of factors here. Of course, this game's going to be the rubber match, as it were, between these two. And of course, being played at North Central, which Illinois Wesleyan lost in overtime to end the regular season.
Yeah, and they were just there. Of the teams that have been through North Central in the recent past, Illinois Wesleyan is the one that knows it a little bit better. It's a tough place to play. It's a big old barn of a building. Built in the 30s or the 20s. It's really an indoor track facility with an arena floor in the middle. The temporary bleachers set up behind the basket. The back wall is 60 feet, 100 feet away.
Salem-esque.
It's dark. It's kind of dark. It's it's great atmosphere. It's a fantastic place if you just want to sit down and watch an old time basketball game. But if I wouldn't want to be the one shooting on it, that's for sure.
And I would say that the one advantage Illinois Wesleyan may have, I don't know, but I think it's an advantage. This time they get that extra day in there. They get to have that practice on Friday that they would normally not have in conference
Oh, they get to play. They get to practice in the building.
Yeah, they get to
that's a good
practice
point.
on Friday and shoot around on Saturday. I don't know if it's a major factor, but it's maybe just helps you get to the sidelines a little bit better.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think anybody, and there's obviously no illusion that this is not a huge game. These teams, as we've said, know each other very well. Coaches know each other very well. They have plenty of film that they can go back and break down if they want to see, plus whatever they get from
plus what they got this week,
the NCAA from the last couple of games. I expect a low-scoring, fierce battle that comes down to the final possession, and whatever period that final possession is in, kind of like the
this goes overtime. I'm not going to be surprised.
Kind of like the conference regular season final did.
Yeah, and of course then you have Ithaca and Middlebury, and this is
it's an interesting matchup too. I mean, Ithaca,
Tippin.
When I picked Springfield to go to the Elite Eight,
right,
in the predictions, it was with this in mind. It was I thought Ithaca Springfield was a toss-up.
Mm-hmm.
I thought University of Rochester was doomed to go out early.
They seemed to peak a little early.
Yeah, they were coming on the downside, and I thought that either Middlebury might lose at Cortland State, or at the very least they might be vulnerable. And Ithaca is a team that was banged up a little bit early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
They put their things together. Again, they've got a senior point guard, Sean Rossi, who's now the leading assist man all time in Division III men's basketball. So, I think for a round of 16 game between a top 10 team and an unranked team, I think this is going to be pretty good.
And Middlebury doesn't blow good teams out. The flip side of that is Middlebury is very used to playing good teams close.
Yes, they are.
So if that game is within 4 points in the last minute, they're not going to get tight.
They're the
because they're used. They're used to it. So it's a rough year for Ithaca to be renovating its gym. Both programs.
But that might be an advantage. Ithaca's been basically playing on the road for 4 weeks now.
So.
Ben Light Gymnasium better look awesome this year. That's all I'm saying.
Gleaming with gold.
Think of all the opportunities they've had to host games. Men could have hosted.
Could you
women
imagine
could have
the
hosted.
conversation? And listen, we need to start this renovation. Do you mind if we start here? Yeah, sure. It's just the Empire 8
February
tournament.
25th?
Right.
Yeah,
We're
fine.
good. We're good. I remember doing Hoopsville. It was either right before the show or on the air, and I saw a tweet pop up per Ithaca. I was like, what? I said, I got to read that a couple more. I think it took about 10 minutes before I finally said it on air, because I'm like, this unbelievable, especially on the women's side of things. But Ithaca gets past Rochester at the Palestra on a tip-in. Just didn't die. And I thought Cortland State could beat Middlebury. Again, Middlebury's in tight games.
Right.
But
They had
Cortland
them.
State, Cortland State had them. Middlebury's just able to get right past them.
8-3 run at the end.
And, of course, Middlebury gets to play this one at home, which certainly is an advantage for them. But they
Ithaca's
lost this game to Scranton last year.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, and Ithaca's
with a better
certainly
team.
accustomed to traveling right now.
Yeah.
Scranton probably wasn't as good as Ithaca last year. I don't know. It's up for debate. Middlebury isn't as good as they were last year.
And I look at this roster and it's like, I know who Sean Rossi is. I've known about Sean Rossi for a long time. I know about Eli Maravich because he won scored the tip-in at the buzzer.
Otsamel's a nice player. I've seen him before. When they come down to Stevens, I've been able to get to some of their games. He's a nice forward. He's a nice counter to some of those NESCAC guys who go 6'4", 220, a little plodding but pretty strong. Not Ryan Sherry talent-wise, but Ryan Sherry build-wise.
Body-wise,
Yeah, so would look very comfortable in the CCIW, that sort of thing, and Jordan Zimmer, that sort of build. I don't see them winning this game. I think last week was their special moment, so to speak. But again, Middlebury doesn't blow teams out, so they're going to be not good teams. They're going to be in the game.
This isn't going to be a blowout.
They're going to have a chance to win it at the end.
This is going to be a nip and tuck game, most likely, just because of the nature of both teams.
Watch,
it'll be a 20-point game.
Well, that's always what I'm trying to guard against.
And Illinois Wesleyan and North Central is not even going to go close to the
It'll
end
be
either.
98-75 or something.
Yeah.
The opposite of a low-scoring defensive down to the last
down
second
to the wire. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing whichever 8 of these teams survive next week. I think
great matchups for the games in Salem, only because we're going to get either South or West versus an East or Mid-Atlantic. You're going to get a Northeast versus possibly a South.
This is where the good part of the bracket will start for the men, where they were able to use some of that creativity, the kind of things that we were talking about, from day one or even 2 weeks before the tournament
Calvin
started.
or St. Thomas versus Virginia Wesleyan or Williams.
Yeah, those are the things that you don't get in the round of 8 otherwise.
You're hopeful you can even get that for the Final Four. Just the way the pods work, you don't necessarily get to do that either.
Yeah, that's a good point. The downsides of the men's tournament, the drawn-out week in between, the increased focus on geography in the early weeks, you're going to get the flip side of that over that 10-day period where you the Elite Eight, the Final Four, and then the championship game in Atlanta. You're going to get the payoff for the pain of relatively speaking.
They're going to sleep through some of those 15 days in between the semifinals and the championship.
I don't know how to stop and then start again. That's going to be a little strange.
But we are going to stop and start again because we're going to take a break and we'll be back out here with more.
Yeah, we'll come back and you talk to Williams, one of Williams' players.
Danny Rayner.
Danny Rayner.
We'll chat with her, and then when we come back, we'll quickly look at the other two teams in this, the Amherst and Wisconsin Whitewater teams ahead of tomorrow. So we will take a break. If you got questions for us, there's the chat room alongside. Of course, there's email, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Don't forget, you can also join us on Twitter @D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. They all work. Please use them. Don't be afraid to do so. And since we were talking men, we'll make sure to let you know about getting to Salem for those games. For more information, it's coming up next. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com.
The time has now come when all of their hard work and dedication is put to the ultimate test. They will put it all on the line to become NCAA champions. And you can has now come when all of their hard work and dedication is put to the ultimate test. They will put it all on the line to become NCAA champions. And you can experience it live. Be there at the 2013 NCAA Division III men's basketball quarterfinal and semifinal games, March 22nd and 23rd in Salem, Virginia, hosted by Old Dominion Athletic Conference and the City of Salem. Get your NCAA championship tickets today at ncaa.com/tickets and make a date with champions.
I know sports is important, but having the academic part along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself, a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles.
At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The end result, in my mind, is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for other opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during soccer, but after soccer, that's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
Welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm here at Hope College in Holland, Michigan, where they just learned that Williams College's mascot is the Eafs.
Yep.
We're joined by Danny Rayner, who's one of the 6 seniors on this Eafs squad for Williams. And first of all, welcome to the Women's Division III National Semifinals. That's a big deal for Williams, which has had a lot of success in a lot of other sports.
Yeah, it's actually our first time in school history making it to the Final Four, so we are all so ecstatic to be here.
I understand it was a pretty long trip for you guys.
Yeah, we were actually traveling for 12 hours in total yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, between flying and having layovers and getting flights delayed and then getting on a bus and driving from Detroit to Holland, it took a while.
It did, and it's a long time coming for this program too. The NESCAC, as we all know, is a conference that has had a great deal of success in sports overall, but also especially in women's basketball. At one point it was Bowdoin making Final Four runs. Amherst has been here. This will be 5th year in a row. Tufts has had some success in the tournament, and you guys have always kind of been there, but have played in a sense second fiddle to Amherst, especially the last few years. And I'm sorry because I know that's your arch rival, but how does it feel to get past that?
It feels awesome. My class, I'm a senior, so our freshman year we made it to the Sweet 16, and then our sophomore year we got knocked out in the first round. So this really feels unbelievable to get all the way to the Final Four. Finally, our senior year. So
was there a point this season where you guys felt that you had what it took to get over the top?
Yeah, I think when we beat Amherst at home on our senior night by 20 points, it it was unbelievable. That's when we knew that we had what it took to get to the Final Four.
Yeah, that was a pretty eye-opening result for the rest of us. I knew that, obviously we know that Amherst had that large senior class that graduated last year, but then they kept on winning, and they hadn't lost a NESCAC game in several years before you guys took them down.
Yeah, I think once you kind of get used to that, just winning all the time, it doesn't matter who necessarily you still have on your team or who's not there. It's just something you're used to doing, and so it comes naturally. Just to do whatever it takes to pull out a win at the end.
You're part of a group of 6 seniors on this squad, and to have a senior class and a senior night that involves 6 players is pretty unusual in any level of college basketball, but even in Division III where nobody's leaving early to go to pros.
It's awesome. We caught here together as freshmen, stepped on the court together, and it's just unbelievable to see these girls who I've been playing with. I've been through so much with on and off the court every single day for 4 years. It feels awesome to play with them, and it's unbelievable that we're all here together.
Have you guys thought at all that, no matter what happens, these are your last 2 games?
Yeah. It's weird to think about because basketball's always been something we've done throughout our entire lives so far. So we're trying not to think about that part of it yet, just the excitement of being like, wow, if these are going to be our last 2 games, we're so glad that we made it this far.
I might talk to you later about maybe whether you have thoughts of playing in Europe or anything like that. But we'll talk a little bit about the game at hand. They play DePauw on Friday night in the Division III national semifinals. You come in with a kind of a wholesale commitment to playing defense. Tell us about that.
Well, I think it's something we pride ourselves on all year. It doesn't matter what you're doing on offense. If you can't score, you can hold the team that you're playing to less points than you're going to score. So it's something that you completely have control over. Sometimes you don't have control over if your shots are going in or not. It's something that you can just really. It takes a lot of heart to play defense, and that's something that we have a lot of on our team.
Yeah.
So
because defense, offense is glamorous, and
Yeah.
defense is just kind of hard work.
Yeah. And doing all the little things like boxing out and like jumping on the floor to get a loose ball. It's all those sorts of things. That's what wins games for us. So.
Yep, and so there's those 2 obviously big aspects to defense as well. You guys are just blocking shots like you wouldn't believe. I know that our fellow Hoopsville member Gordon Mann was at your games this past weekend, and I know that you guys really just took it to Whitman, 20 block shots against Whitman.
Yeah.
But that's not a fluke. You guys are leading the country in block shots for a reason. What is it? How do you get to that point?
Well, we have Claire Bajer on our team.
I understand that, but I looked at the stats. She's not the only one.
Yeah,
so.
We try to have a lot of help defense. So if someone gets beat on the perimeter, we have people to step in. Normally it's Claire or I, or Kelly, who are both. We're all pretty long, so.
Kelly McDonald.
Yeah, Kelly McDonald.
Yep.
So it's really fun to get a lot of block shots in a game. It really riles the crowd up, and then we all kind of get really excited, especially when Claire gets one of her awesome.
Yeah. Well, and so there's obviously many different ways you can block a shot. There's the emphatic block the shot out of bounds, and maybe that doesn't necessarily get you as much. But
doesn't get us possession.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
But it motivates us, and yeah.
Right. Do you have as many shots as you guys block as a team? You must have some control over it too. Are you working to try to keep the ball in play also, tip it to a teammate? Or?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, to kind of make sure first that they don't score, but then to also get possession of the ball. And it's awesome when you get a block shot, you get possession, and you get a fast break. So that's the ultimate goal, but we'll take them however we can get them.
And they've taken them to the tune of, I think I've skipped past the number, was it 8 a game? Yeah. 8 block shots a game, as I mentioned, leading Division III. So we'll see how that goes against DePauw on Friday night. Assume you have seen them on tape, and I know just from looking up and down the roster, you guys have a few inches on them in most of the key positions.
Yeah, I think their post players are 5'10", 5'11", and Claire's 6'3", and I'm 6 feet, and Kelly's 6 feet also. So we're hoping that we can kind of take advantage of our height. You've
been through an experience so far in this tournament. You've beaten some of the big names in Division III women's basketball. University of Scranton, University of Rochester have been big powers in Division III basketball for some years. Maybe not this time around. Guys, obviously you know Amherst very well. If you have the potential to face Amherst on Saturday, it's something we'll talk about a little bit later. But what's the tournament experience been like for you guys this year compared to some of those early exits you talked about earlier?
Well, I think this year we've come into this tournament with just confidence, and we're calm and we're composed. Years before, we've been like, when we were freshmen, we were just so excited to be at the tournament, and we were a little nervous about what to do. And this year, we've been there before, and we know what we can do. We always like to say we're in control of our own destiny. And I think this year we're really kind of buying into that and embodying what that means.
Have you ever watched the men's team success over the last few years?
Yes, I actually went to their Final Four 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago in Salem, and it's awesome.
Does that help get you guys motivated too?
Yeah, I mean it's we support each other, so it's fun when we're both doing well and they come to our games and support us, and we go to theirs and support them.
How about last Saturday, for example? Did that help you out?
Yeah, last Saturday we played after them, and
right.
they came to our games in a corner all together and were cheering us on the whole time, and then they were celebrating us when we were cutting the nets down.
Very nice.
Yeah.
You mentioned Claire Bacher earlier. Obviously, she's the team leader in block shots, as among other things. 6'3" senior. They list you at 6'0". Is that good?
Yeah.
I'm going to stand up. We can stand up later. I'd be listed at 6'1", and my doctor would say I'm 5'11" and 5'8" or something.
Yeah.
Like that. So
nice little rounding.
Yeah, exactly. Tell us about Claire's game.
Claire's unbelievable. She's just a scoring threat. She has a three. She can go off the dribble. She can post you up. She has so many things in her pocket that she can just pull out. And then her defense is unbelievable. Just even the ability of her to just stand behind someone in the post and alter their shot. She doesn't even have to block it, and they're going to alter it because she's 6'3" with these long arms coming at you. You're going to try to change her shot. So she's a really big part of our game.
Pat Manning's been, the coach at Williams for,
Forever.
23 years. Yeah. She said it. I said 23 years, but yes, I did. I led you to that. Thank you. I appreciate that. She talked about this team being just really loose.
Yeah.
How does that? I don't know. I mean, if you think about being loose, you probably can't be loose. So how do you get there?
I think it's off the court. We're a really relaxed group of girls. We like to hang out, and we're not so uptight and nervous about games. We're more excited, and we're able to make jokes and laugh about things. And then once we get onto the court, we're all business. But we also like to have fun when we're on the court. So I think that's different from other teams that she's had in the past that didn't necessarily have our kind of all of our personalities meshed into one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
25-6 gives you the opportunity to have a lot of fun too.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
It's always fun when you're winning.
I want to look back. I mean, obviously, you guys, all the losses this season are to top-notch teams. I guess Amherst obviously lost a couple of those meetings there. Tufts has had a great season this year. Smith made the NCAA tournament and won a first-round game. And Bridgewater State, even though they might look like the odd team out there with that home loss on December 1st, they had a pretty good season too.
Yeah, it's once you're in the NESCAC, you always kind of get this. People want to beat you. So it's always hard when you're playing teams out of your conference. Where we're going to beat Amherst. Amherst. We're going to beat Williams. We're going to beat Tufts. We're all these teams that want us. So it's you got to come into it and be ready for those games. And I think we let a few slip away this year that we shouldn't have.
This is the senior class of yours is kind of from all over the place. There's a couple from California.
Yeah.
There's someone from Brunswick, Maine. Obviously, we know there's another NESCAC school associated with Brunswick, Maine. Someone from New Jersey, and then for you, this is close to home.
Yeah, it's awesome. Actually, you'd be surprised at how many parents get out to all of our games. And
really,
especially these last ones. We've had people flying from all over the country. One of our freshmen's from Hawaii. Yeah, and a few more from one from Texas. We're all over the place. So it's really awesome just to kind of get this group of girls from all over the country and see how well we mesh and play together.
Well, Danny, we always give the coach or player, the guest, the final word on Hoopsville. So it's your chance to do a shout out or whatever, however you want to say. You guys have fans coming out?
Yeah, we do. We have all of our families and some fans and some alums that are in this area. So I just want to shout out to all of our support system. And if you're coming out here, thank you for all your support along the way.
And I'll shout out to Dave, who's in the room now for the last half of this interview. But we'll take a break, and we'll come back with more Hoopsville in just a minute from Holland, Michigan.
Division Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
We are back. Sorry for the delay, folks.
We didn't bring Chris Taro to this, did we?
We didn't. Oh, and there's the commercial running. Oh, no, that's just my audio from your computer.
Yeah. Turn your radio down.
Nothing like a reverb. Just screw Dave up.
We need you to turn your radio down.
Before we go any further, I'd like to congratulate Hannah Lukmeyer of DePauw. She's the NCAA Elite 89 winner. That's the that's the award that goes to the person with the top GPA at the championship site. So,
which is a great award, by the way.
It is. It's a very Division III thing. Of course, somehow they managed to apply it to those guys in Division I too. But
ouch.
When she's got a 3.9,
lightning.
May I 3.973 grade point average.
Come on, stop it.
For DePauw. So
it'd be interesting to see who the men's is because
whether they do it out of 8 or 2.
Well, looking at the Jostin Award finalists, some of the GPAs there were just ridiculous. Some guy, you're literally breaking 3 point. I think there were 4 or 5 above 3.9.
It's a hashtag YD3.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. My sign language isn't anywhere near as good as it used to be.
No, that's okay. Don't worry. Mine isn't either. We're here at Hayworth Inn, we should mention. Of course, live here at Hope College, site of the Women's Championship Weekend. Of course, Hoopsville being here for the very first time for obvious reasons, because the men are not playing this weekend in Salem, Virginia, where I have normally traveled since it's a little bit closer. And where we will be next week, quick programming note, we will be at the Pine Room at Hotel Roanoke a week from tonight. Please stop by if you're on the men's side and your team is there, or you just make Salem a trip. We would love to see you. Gordon won't be there. He's ditching us.
Sorry.
And I'd also like to point out that this is the coverage that we got here in the Holland Sentinel, right? Yeah, Holland Sentinel. I suspect this will not be what the Atlantic Journal-Constitution looks like on Sunday, April 7th.
What was it about the games? We think it'll be this, and it'll be right. We'll get a full mock-up on Monday.
Oh, that's unlikely.
Yeah, I know. Just saying. Just saying. And of course, we'll be in Salem next weekend for the games, and of course, and then Atlanta, 3 weeks from tonight. I will be in Atlanta live with Hoopsville. I think we're going to be at the Hilton Hotel.
And we should also talk about the shows we're doing at the Civic Center next Friday and Saturday.
Yep, and we just got
signed. Most everything's signed off, right?
Yeah, signed off.
We can talk about this now.
We will be doing shows prior to the first game on Friday and Saturday, between the games on Friday and Saturday, and then shortly afterward we'll do some mini shows without trying to miss anything important. But Pat and I will be there. We will get other guests involved. So basically when NCAA goes off the air, we will be going on the air, and then we will go off the air about the time NCAA will be going on the air.
So come to us for post-game analysis. We'll break down what happened in the game. We'll get you pre-game interviews for heading up to the next game. It's basically, I would say it's Hoopsville at the half, except it's not at the half. It's everything
Hoopsville
else.
courtside, pregame and postgame all wrapped up into one. Can't show any highlights, but then again, we don't have the manpower to turn those types of things
And then you'll be
around in
watching the game
place.
on NCAA.com and then coming over to us.
Yeah, so we'll be there for those, and obviously at the Pine Room, and then Atlanta will be live on Thursday. We'll be live on Sunday night as well. Hopefully after the championship game, if Calvin keeps winning, that will change, but we can talk about that in a few weeks. That could change things dramatically.
Yes.
We'll have to change our schedule.
I would say one of the things, too, I'm looking forward to about Atlanta is there are so many former D3 guys, either guys who are D3 alums or former D3 coaches who are coaching in Division I, and the Final Four is a big draw for them because that's when the NABC convention is as well. So, we'll see guys like Jim Hayford, who has already texted me and say, "Are you going to be in Atlanta?" I was like, I'm going to be in Atlanta, and you still have my cell phone number?
Awesome.
What's that about?
Mike Lonergan,
Mike Lonergan,
Rhodes.
Mike Rhodes, who is an assistant at VCU.
Yeah.
Is that still true, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Tony Shaver, I assume, might be there, former Hampton Sydney coach, now still at William & Mary?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
Lots of those types of coaches, and maybe we'll even get some non-D3s because we're there.
Maybe, if they're willing to talk to you.
If they're willing to talk to me. So anyway, so stick with us on Twitter, at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville, and of course on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. We will keep you abreast of all of our detailed plans, et cetera, et cetera. But again, a week from tonight, Pine Room at the Hotel Roanoke, 7 to whenever.
Drinks on Dave.
Eastern time. What?
No, maybe not.
Okay, let's go back to this real quick. We have Amherst and Whitewater we should talk about quickly. By the way, coming up, Pat takes us a quick trip around DeVos. I
forgot about that.
Before we wrap things up.
I got to get over there.
But you better hurry and bring a camera.
And bring a flashlight.
That too.
I'm going to find my coat. I left my coat over there today.
By the way, a few Hope players were practicing while we were there too.
I saw that.
I didn't think that was a thing you could do.
Yeah, I didn't either, but apparently no one had a problem with it. Amherst versus Whitewater on this one. GP Gromacki, who apparently only gets to championship weekends, no matter the scenario. His 6th year in Amherst and 5th time in a row that they have made the trip. Of course, only one national title. I think that's the biggest one that jumps out to people. And, of course, Wisconsin-Whitewater, Kerry Carollo trying to do what Pat Miller did with the men's side last year and win a national title.
Yeah, I was talking with GP Gromacki before we came in here, and he said, every year it's like every year he enjoys this more and more, which is good. It doesn't get old.
Does he have his Vegas shirt?
He was not wearing a Vegas shirt.
Okay.
He was dressed nicely, dressed for a
See
banquet.
what he wears tomorrow.
We'll have to suggest that. We'll see if they come out wearing their Vegas finest. But we were remarking about how you sit in the administrative meetings, the coaches' meetings here at the Women's Final Four, and he is the constant now, and everything around him kind of rotates.
He's the institutional memory.
Well, he is. We talked about that a little bit, which doesn't necessarily affect New England and the Northeast as much because there's so many options to choose brackets from. But he said, for the first few years, Wash U was here as well, and and then with Christopher Newport, or it was Hope, or it was Howard Payne, Rochester. Am I getting all these? I might be getting all my years crossed, but you get the idea. What Amherst has done, and now with not a completely different cast of characters, but a significantly different one. This is pretty impressive.
And I think what makes this run most important is a very short cast of characters.
Yeah.
They only play really 7 players, and that's not them shortening their bench at the end of the year. That's what they've used. And
They've gotten a little bit deeper maybe at times, but
when you're up by 40,
but I'm saying it's that
when you're up
seven
by
mainly.
when you're up by 40 against University of New England in the second round, you're gonna get deeper. But I can't think of another program that's done that. Maybe you guys have seen it on the men's side, but has been that.
You mean the short rotation?
That short a rotation where 4 or 5 of the starters are averaging 34, 35 minutes.
Well, what it is it's very unusual for Amherst. We look at them over the past couple years, and their top players are averaging 12 points, and they've played 23 minutes a game because they're crushing teams, and because they have all this talent on the bench. The guys who are playing right now. If you go back and look at last year's national semifinal game, Amherst really only against George Fox. I think Amherst really only played 7, maybe 8 people. They had somebody else who had 1 minute off the bench, Jasmine Hardy, who's now a starter for them this year. It's just it's
pretty much 6 players.
It's that depth.
3 players playing the whole game. One getting pretty close. Haley Zwicker gets a few minutes here and there, and then it's a split deal between Savannah Holness will play for somebody, whoever's in foul trouble or whatever.
We're certainly used to seeing players play more than 30 minutes on average, but they don't usually get this far into the tournament because it's that one player you were talking about earlier, and then everybody else. But look at this. Jasmine Hardy has played over 1,000 minutes so far this season. She will be joined most likely tomorrow, barring something very weird, by Marcia Voigt and Cheyenne Pritchard.
Cheyenne Pritchard is one of the freshmen in the starting lineup.
They're going to have 1,000 minutes each.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like we don't see 1,000 minutes at some point from somebody, or at least playing more than 30 minutes a game on average. But 3 players playing that much this deep in the season.
It's unusual for Amherst, for sure. I'm not sure if it's necessarily unusual for a top-level team, but it is definitely unusual for Amherst.
And what it converts to on the floor is tempo. Amherst needs half court. Amherst needs that game against Whitewater to be 55, 54. If that game gets into the 70s, Amherst is probably in trouble. And Whitewater needs the opposite. And the press conferences are linked off our page, so you can go and listen to Coach Corallo talk about that. She said one of the players, actually, I'm not sure if it was Courtney Kumaro or not, said, if things go our way, we won't be in half court set the whole game. We want to go. Yeah, fast.
I was going to ask.
We want to go fast paced, and
70 points a game.
I think tomorrow that probably plays to Amherst's advantage because they've been in this gym, and we have seen teams come into the Final Four, men's or women's, who are up tempo and play too fast and be too up for it and be too tight and miss things, charging fouls, throw it away out of bounds, and before they know it, the game's gotten away from them.
How much of a factor do you think the TV timeouts will be? Obviously, it's not new. They've been playing with this way the whole tournament.
I think it's helpful to them.
It enables you to really shorten that bench.
Coach Manning for Williams said, boy, I'm really glad. And they do not have as short a rotation. But she said, boy, I'm really glad we have those media timeouts because it's not something that NESCAC has ever. They don't.
It's very rare for women's basketball anywhere.
It is very rare.
I think they were doing 60 to 75 seconds during the tournament. That's roughly where the semis will be. It might be slightly long in the semis. The championship will be quite a bit longer.
I think that definitely helps the Lord Jeffs.
Weird parallel. It's on the men's side of things. I can say this now because the team is out of the tournament. I was talking to Coach Howes and at Catholic. They came to the Hoopsville Classic where we did run media timeouts for varying reasons, and he said they were a short team at the time too because they had a lot of freshmen. They were trying to figure some things out. They came out of that going, these media timeouts helped us a ton. It gave us these breaks. So they went back and right away for their first home game instituted that the rest of the season. Now they were able to get deeper and deeper bench-wise, and it certainly may not have been necessary at the end, but that's the key with Amherst. If they get these breaks, and certainly they've been getting used to them and they may be a little longer, they can shorten the bench, not that they shorten it any further. And maybe
they can
stay with it.
They can play a man down and put Whitewater on the power play.
Whoa! I'm not sure Whitewater's hockey team is any good, though.
But they're capable of doing it.
I think the key to this team is Savannah Holness. The game that we covered between Amherst and Tufts, she was really the key to that game for Amherst. She came off the bench pretty early. She played a ton of minutes, and she is just she's got amazing energy, great quickness. Knows how to get the ball to the basket. I really like her. She is, she's averaging just under 20 minutes a game, but she is going to be, she's going to be a significant player for them. And this weekend, I think, and certainly in her final 2 years.
And Amherst this year, it hasn't been pretty a lot of times, but they just win. I mean, they won against Tufts last week. They were out-rebounded. They had less field goals. I think they had less field goals than they did free throws and points off of three-pointers, and still won and never trailed pretty much the whole game. So. Their kids are tough. Their coach is great, and
I've been talking to one of their parents throughout the year. He's emailed me, and I've been emailing back and forth. And some of it will stay between us. But one of the things he did keep saying was, there were times they're just like, how are they still winning?
Yeah.
This is basically a team that is all new starters. Probably good players, by the way. They probably would have been starting any other NESCAC team or even other teams in the country, but still had to figure themselves out. You could see that early on. I think they've gelled certainly at the right time, but wow, I mean, just a unit that's one, I don't hate to say it ugly, but we were used to Amherst basketball being A, and this is definitely B.
Well, they're capable of winning ugly, and that's important. I would caution people not to look at games between Amherst and Tufts and draw too many comparisons on Amherst
very slow.
Because Tufts, exactly, it's a deliberate pace. Tufts is just as bought into defense as anybody else.
It's like a drag race between two steamrollers.
47. I like that.
I mean, Megan Robertson.
47-43 was no surprise if that was the final.
Right, 47-42. Megan Robertson shot 3 of 10. Marsha Voigt shot 2 of 14. Jasmine Hardy shot 2 of 9. And he shot 12 of 45. And Gordon, you were right. Fewer field goals than free throws. They were 18 of 21 from the line. They got out rebounded.
And they've been out rebounded a bit. This year.
It's and
it's just they found other ways to lockdown defense certainly they've been known for years, but I'll never forget the Babson game 2 years ago or a year and a half ago at the Las Vegas Classic. Or was it Babson or no,
it was
somebody
WPI.
else. WPI, which was close for about 10 minutes.
Oh, and
then WPI didn't score for
Amherst opened up and the defense opened up the offense.
And literally, wasn't it 109 to 38 or
something like that? It was literally 10 minutes left. I think it was like the first half was like a 5-point game, and all of a sudden it was like a 50-2 run. It was
109-39.
Nice.
Wow.
So I mean, information.
Amherst versus Whitewater. I agree. Whoever dictates the tempo wins this game.
I think. Well, go ahead.
Whoever dictates their tempo. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I think that. It'd be interesting. I think Whitewater might be able to play at Amherst tempo, but I'm not
sure. They're comfortable is the question. I mean, you can slow down, but do you feel comfortable doing it? Does the rhythm of catching the ball and shooting when you're in a higher pace versus a slower pace, if you're used to the higher pace, doing it at a slower pace might feel like it's...
Or making that extra pass or 7.
I would say that I think what Whitewater does have going for them is I think they have the most impressive victories on an NCAA tournament roster. If we go back, they beat Hope, who I thought would win the whole thing. They beat Simpson, who was very good. They beat Carthage, and their first round matchup was it Saint Scholastica?
It was Wisconsin Lutheran.
No, Wisconsin Lutheran.
So even that's
a decent and a decent first round draw. They have beaten really good teams and on their own floor, and Coach Corallo was quick to point that out. She was thankful for those opportunities to play at home, and they play in that conference that is a real meat grinder and is really tough. And it's sort of interesting when we've talked with J.P. Gramacki in the past, and I've said, and I've asked him, what's the best conference in the country? He always says the WIAC. It's the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. I wonder if that hasn't changed. I wonder if the best conference in the country now, at least this year, isn't the NESCAC.
Well, it's interesting. We'll find out more in the next couple of days, won't we?
Yeah.
I know, for example, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. You've not been very complimentary of Northeast teams at this stage of the tournament in previous years.
No, that's fair.
Come on, Amherst has been here now fifth time. They've won one national title.
Well, and that's it's not a discredit to Amherst.
The point that you made in the Open, G.P. Gramacki was 125-5, and he is 3 and 4.
Three of those 5 losses
2 and 3 and 3 here. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And they've been here 4 times and won one national title. They've lost 3 or 4 games here. And not here being the championship weekend, obviously not here at home.
But that said, the NESCAC will have 3 top 10 teams at the end of the country. And
at the end of the country?
I'm sorry, at the end of the season.
Gordon breaking some news here. Quickly, I want to point out I ran into Shirley Egner in the
Wisconsin Stevens Point women's coach.
Right, and they're here for multiple reasons. They, rivalry, don't necessarily want to see Whitewater win, but they're getting ready for the games next year in the championship weekend. And I thought when I saw her and talking with her, I just thought to myself, geez, this is the team that actually won the conference AQ. They and Whitewater battled it out. Certainly, if things go a different way, Egner's here for a different reason.
Right. Well, and the other thing about Whitewater is this is why Whitewater is here in the Final Four, and this is why a WIAC team should always be in the top 10. I don't care what their record is.
Bob Quillman.
They should always be in the top 10. And I've had them in the top 10 all year, and I've felt silly looking at Whitewater and going, I can't believe I have this team with 4 losses in the top 10, and they have 45 votes total. But I kept telling myself they should always be, just put them there. They should always be in the top 10, and here we are in the final weekend, and guess who's here?
You must have heard the Open, Bob Quillman's famous line.
Well,
there should always be 3 teams in the
Well, and
top
I think we
25.
talked about it. We said it in the Open too tonight. It's like not only the WIAC champion in any sport must be considered a threat to win the national championship. And women's basketball is certainly one of those.
And I think there are. I think for the men's basketball, I always look at 5 conferences that should always have a team ranked, and it's the NESCAC, the UAA, the CCIW, the WIAC, and the ODAC. And you can almost do that a little bit with the women's side. It's a little different roster because the ODAC isn't on it, but it's the UAA, the WIAC, the NESCAC. I think the Northwest Conference has probably earned that distinction,
I think you're right.
and I think the CCIW, although not as fantastic a year, when they've done enough.
Unfortunately, Hope and Calvin the only ones in the MIAA.
Yeah, and the other thing about women's basketball is there are individual programs that Hope is going to be excellent. You know someone out of the Mid-Atlantic, whether it's Messiah, Scranton's going to be good.
Absolutely.
Rochester, although they're in the UAA. You have those. It's more of an individual program-driven sport than it is a conference.
Actually, I think the Commonwealth might have been the biggest revelation this year, just because Messiah and Widener were so good, and Lebanon Valley wins to get in. They don't get in otherwise, but legitimately won that conference to get in. So I think the Commonwealth certainly stood up this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can keep that up, but we always get a good team out of the Commonwealth.
And not that this is a power conference necessarily, but the USA South in women's basketball had a crazy good year for them.
Maryville, and Christopher Newport.
Yeah, they really did.
Years.
Maryville played well in the tournament. Christopher Newport knocked off unbeaten Montclair State. That's a good year for them.
That's going to be a really entertaining conference when they shift over to the CAC next year.
When Christopher Newport,
because you're going to have York and Marymount.
Both on the men's
you're going to have some very strange contrasts of style. Marymount who's trying to beat you 32-31, and some of those other teams. The winner of all of it is Ferrum, because they won't have to play any of these teams anymore, or at least quite as often.
They'll be playing Huntington.
Right. By the way, Nathaniel in the chat board says we're in overtime. Actually, we started 20 minutes late, so we got 10 more minutes.
15.
We're in bonus time.
No, we got 10 more. We have 5 more minutes until we're in bonus time, which is a Hoopsville standard.
There was also a question as to who holds the women's scoring record in DeVos Fieldhouse, and we saw it just last year. There was Hannah Munger with 36 points for George Fox against Amherst in the
question was submitted by H. Munger at gfox.edu.
Oh, that seems unlikely. That's not a very Hannah Munger-ish thing to say.
Quakers wouldn't do that.
But this is going to be a really fun championship weekend. I mean, again, we talk about the dynamic of that Amherst versus Whitewater game. Just which tempo is going to be dictated, and can they dictate it for 40 minutes too, and win that one? And then you have DePaul, who I said it in the Open, has been dismantling some good teams. Wash U absolutely dismantled them. Christopher Newport, great season, beat Montclair State. And didn't have a chance.
Yeah. The thing with DePaul that I really thought would hamper them is the fact that they hadn't played a close game. And there's 2 reasons you can be in that situation. I was banking on the first, which was that they were that much better and their conference wasn't very good, and it would hurt them. The second is they're just that much better than everybody else. And
it's not just the conference.
And it's like the Mount Union in football thing, where there are just certain years where they're the giants among the midgets.
Head, shoulders, and torso above everybody else.
And I'm not ready to say that yet, but
boy, what they did against
really
WashU. I mean, WashU I thought could be a game. I didn't know if WashU could win it ultimately, because WashU has shown some flaws this year that I know is driving Coach Fay up the wall. But when that wasn't even a game, I remember thinking to myself, "Oh wow,
that game was a 25-point game with 5 to 10 minutes to go, and that WashU isn't going to lose because they're traveling and they're not used to it, because they're not poised, because they're not ready,
or not well coached."
Right? They're gonna if they're losing that badly, it's because they're getting.
And they've won on the road.
Yeah,
they play at really tough places all the time.
And they played that team to a standstill on a neutral floor long time ago. But
of course, Williams is the curveball here. You know, Williams doesn't get the host last weekend if Ithaca isn't renovating their gym. Does that mean that was a help to get here? You know, yeah, they beat Amherst earlier in the season, but that's Amherst's only blend. I mean, I think there's more question marks. As good as Williams seems in different segments of the game, there's more question marks with them. And having seen what DePaul has done to some of these teams, you sit there going, what is going to happen?
Yeah, I was really impressed with DePaul's guard play when I watched them this year, and I think that will be the tough matchup for Williams, because Williams has a lot of talent and a lot of length down low with Danny Rayner, who we had earlier in the show, and Claire Bacher. And the guard play, their guards are good, but now I'm going to revert back to old Gordon. Their guards are not strong and physical, and it's going to hurt them in the Final Four.
Interesting. And of
so
course,
there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Of course, those games tomorrow, 5:30 and 7:30. Interesting dynamic. 2 hours in between, not 2.5. The men have gone to 2.5 when they get to Salem, but
that's just this year, though. They don't always do that. I think
not necessarily, right?
We should thank one more person, not only because he walked in the room, but because the cookies are awesome. Tom Renner, the sports information director here at Hope. Those peanut butter filled chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, I don't think he got any left. Tom Renner. Want to thank him. He helped us get this set up for us so we could do the game. Do the show. This is a show. But I think tomorrow, I know Hope wishes they were here, but I think these 4 teams have shown that, this is going to be good battles, we would hope. Again, DePaul, Williams, I think,
first 5 to 10 minutes is going to tell the story of that.
But I think
if
that
Williams
other game
comes out, it's like Rocky 1. They have to come out and they have to hit Apollo Creed and stagger them and show that they're in the fight. Because if not,
and stagger them after the first media timeout, stagger them after the second media timeout.
Exactly.
If
you
not,
got to keep it up.
This will be Rocky 4, where Ivan Drago beats Carl Merriweather into the grave.
Wow. I really think that this game is going to be played in those 4-minute segments. It's really kind of. How is that? 10 mini games?
Yeah.
Did I get that right? Yeah. It's really going to be, maintain that momentum, get to the timeout, and then do it again, get to the next timeout. And, I really think that is the way these games are going to be played. And if you're behind, then what you got to do is you got to focus on, it's like in the CBA 25 years ago, win the quarter, win the media timeout, win that 4-minute stretch, and then come back to play.
Yeah, if they hit them out of the gate and they got to go make some adjustments, then hit them again and they got to make adjustments, then hit them again and got to make adjustments, then they're going to start second-guessing it, and then Williams can get in this.
They have to create a little bit of doubt that.
Yes.
They have to create a little bit of doubt.
Like, okay, what's going on here? Right. We're going to wrap things up here as we are now. Oh, come on! I got to go at least 2 more minutes to be in overtime.
Well, we've got the.
Yes, we've got the. Well, which one did you want me to run? Did you want me the tour or our pregame?
No, the tour.
Our tour. Yes, we will run the. That was my plan, actually. Kind of interestingly enough. Pat gives us a little taste of the DeVos Fieldhouse, which I got a chance to see for the first time. You have seen before. Of course,
best facility
you have seen,
in Division 3.
I have already, by walking into the building, checkmarked another facility off of my D3 list.
To be on my list, you have to see a game there, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Well,
you'll get that
taken tomorrow. You got to wait about 24 hours.
Yeah, I'll checkmark that tomorrow, and of course I'll checkmark 1, 2, 3 teams I think off my list. So.
Okay.
But I want to thank Tom Renner and those here at Hope, Brian Morehouse, who joined us early on in the show, and of course want to thank all the guests who Pat was able to chat with early on as well. We will be throughout the weekend providing you insight on what's going on with interviews with individuals throughout, and of course we'll be. What are we blogging? And can you give the lay of the land quickly?
You can follow us on Twitter. We'll be covering the games. From a post-game sense, we'll have, as you mentioned, we'll have interviews after the games, and then we'll do. I know on Saturday we'll do a wrap-up of the season special on tape.
Yeah, on tape.
Yeah, about 2 hours after the game. No, for probably about a 10-15 minute segment or so after the game, you can watch that as well.
Very good. And of course, All-Americans to be announced.
All-Americans to be announced on Saturday.
Yeah. Very good.
We'll release them on the site.
So for Pat Coleman, for Gordon Mann, and myself, you don't see the three of us all that often in the same place, except if it's Las Vegas.
No.
I want to thank you for tuning in. Appreciate that. As we go to break, Pat Coleman will give us a tour of DeVos, or as we go to the end of the show, I should say. Pat Coleman will give us a tour of DeVos. And again, tune in to us next on Sunday. We'll be back in Baltimore for Hoopsville, and then we'll be in Salem, Virginia next Thursday as well. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you have a good weekend. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you on Sunday here on Hoopsville.
Welcome back to the DeVos Fieldhouse here on the campus of Hope College in Holland, Michigan, giving you a look at the site of the Division III Women's Basketball Championship for the past 2 years and 4 times in the past 6. This is a facility that opened in 2005, seats more than 3,000 people. It's hosted, as I mentioned, 4 Division III Women's Basketball Final Fours. The Division III Volleyball Finals were here this past November. They'll come back in 2013 as well. This is a building on Hope's campus that replaces, in a sense, the Holland Civic Center, where the men's basketball team used to play for many years, and also where the women's team hosted the 1990 Final Four. Women and the men's NCAA tournament home games after that one were played in this facility called the Dow Center here on campus, which seats only about 1,200, but was regulation length. The Holland Civic Center floor was not 94 feet long, as they discovered after the 1990 Women's Basketball Championship. In 1990 and in 2006, Hope College women won the Division III Women's Basketball National Championship. They hang a lot of all sports banners here, a lot of attendance championship banners. Hope has had the best attendance in Division III men's basketball several years running. The women's volleyball championship that was held here last fall, a championship game between Calvin and the University of St. Thomas, drew a record crowd and a raucous crowd for the Division III women's volleyball championship game. This is an institution that prides itself on its athletics. They've done a lot of athletic upgrades. It's not just here in the DeVos Fieldhouse, but they've also redone a lot of their other sports facilities as well. So they're really committed to some of the excellence in Division III athletics. I think we all know that their arch rival is Calvin College, about 30-some miles down the road in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They built a new field house there as well. So Hope has been setting the standard. Calvin's been catching up. That's my opinion. Other people might disagree, but that kind of seems the way it's going. And so, just to give you a little bit of look as to how and where this Division III Women's Basketball Championship will be played this weekend here in Holland, Michigan. Welcome back to the DeVos Fieldhouse here on the campus of Hope College in Holland, Michigan, giving you a look at